slog out to the Grace Herd Path, which was just, it seemed like it didn't want to end that night.
Mm-hmm. And I know Sarah mentioned this was her lowest point of the whole hike, was that herd path out back to Route 73.
Yeah, I think that was the day where she started to realize the time kind of slipped away on her. And she was moving really well throughout the day, and she really enjoys the Dix range. She always does really well up there. For as terrible as her feet felt, she was still just moving nonstop through the Dix range. And then when we started descending into the dark, it was like descending into the belly of the beast. It kind of took the wind out of all of our sails, and it was just a very, very long slog out. And with as many cobbles as there is in the stream crossings, I can only imagine how it felt for her feet, but she just kept putting one foot in front of the other all the way to the car.
Sure. Yeah, it's tough at the end of the day, in her situation, especially. Mentally you're down, physically you're just dead, and then to be on some of those trails, and to make matters worse, it's the middle of the night at that. It's dark out. Yeah, definitely can understand why that could be. That's where everything kind of came to a head as far as becoming as she said, the lowest point of the hike mentally for her.
Yeah, it was refreshing that when we got to the trailhead, her friend Jamie was there, and she was taking some pictures of Sarah, and it was another fresh face, which a fresh face when you're not feeling so great, it's a good friend of yours, it means a lot. So her spirits started to pick up. We got a little bit of food in her in the back of the car, and she was still not feeling great. She was still pretty sore, but having some fresh people around and some fresh smiles, I think it encouraged her, and she went to sleep again after that with some better thoughts in mind than just aimlessly walking down that herd path for hours.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So if you're planning to do a supported FKT attempt, have a lot of fresh, familiar faces show up periodically throughout the attempt. It will clearly go a long way for the person doing the FKT. So take that note with you. But so that was the end of day 4. She slept in her truck, and then the final day. What was it like that morning, moving into the final day?
It felt like a really short nap for both of us. We both slept pretty good, pretty sound. Woke up, and her motivation wasn't as high as the day before or the day before that, but she sat up, and we got some food going to her. And oddly enough, once we got her shoes on, we were standing up, talking for a second, and I think it was an assistant forest ranger. A woman walked by, and she said hello to us and just started chit-chatting with us. And I mentioned what Sarah was doing, and the woman was really excited and said that she'd been following along the whole journey and that she was inspired by what Sarah was doing. So it was kind of just the right person at the right time. I think it was a really good thing for Sarah, just a fresh breath of air from a complete stranger to tell her that she was inspired by what she was doing on such a hard morning for her to get going for the last day.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was great. It was really great. The woman was really excited that she was out there and that she was still going and that she got to see her. So it was pretty fun. And I looked at her and I said, all right, we just got to drive down the road. We're going to meet Jan. When we get there, you talk to him and you tell him your thoughts. And by the time we got there, she was just ready to roll. So little bits of energy like that are what got her through the whole thing.
So I find it interesting that waking up on day 5, obviously, like she knows that the goal is kind of slipped away by this point as far as setting the FKT, and now it's just about finishing. Did she have any of that, kind of last day of school? I can actually see the finish line kind of pep in her step a little bit, or do you think that kind of wasn't really there at this point when she woke up in the morning?
I don't think she had it when she woke up. I think when she came down from Giant and I was waiting at the trailhead for her, and I saw her walking out with Jan and her friend Laura, and you could see there was an attitude change from the time that she put her gear on and just started walking. She was in pretty good spirits. Dallon's a good friend of hers, so I knew they were just going to have a really good time, a good talk through the whole thing. But when she came back, you could see that sense that she knew the end was in sight. So she just she was ready to jump in the truck. I had a milkshake for her, and she was pretty pumped about that. And it was like, all right, let's just go do this. She jumped in the truck. We put the Normatec boots on her. She laid down, and we just drove away. She took a nap, and then when we got to Whiteface at the Atmospheric Center, she got reunited with her dog Mocha, who normally does all of her big adventures with her. So that was another good boost of energy for her, on top of kind of seeing the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her friends was down there waiting for her to see her. Her mom, her stepdad was there waiting for her. So again, some fresh faces, her dog. And she knew at that point the end was near. She just had to go up 2 more peaks and just had to keep walking.
Sure. Not nearly as much coordinating and managing for you to do on this final day, since it's just the few peaks here. The day before, it also, you had quite a bit of coordinating and whatnot, but at that point, so like when you went to bed on night 4, I should say, were you kind of relieved, like, okay, it's pretty straightforward from here on out as far as like the crew goes?
I felt good about the crew. I knew that everybody was on point. For me at that point, I was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but at the same time, I'm watching how sore she is, and kind of just seeing through her eyes what the pain she's enduring. So It was hard to watch. But I knew that she was doing it for the right reason. It was not that she was trying to set a time at this point, that she was just, she's doing it for herself. She wanted to finish what she started. And that was what was going through my mind, is I just got to help her finish in whatever way I can.
So you guys got over to Whiteface, up Esther and then up Whiteface. How did that go for her?
She took off up Marble Mountain pretty quick. I actually was waiting for Erin at the base while Sarah went up with another one of her friends. And then Erin and I caught up to her, and she was moving at a pretty good pace. The uphill was never really an issue. She was still moving at a really solid pace, even after her feet and her quad and everything. Uphill was fine. It was just the downhill. So we knew getting to Esther wouldn't be the best, because there's a little bit of downhill in there, out and back. But the hardest part was over once Esther was done. We knew from there she could climb up Whiteface, and it was just a push to the top. I also knew that some friends were going to meet her along the way. So Esther was a slog. It was really, really muddy, and it was slow because her footing just wasn't great. So we took our time. She was happy to be hiking with Mocha again, so we were all joking around and having a good time. Then we made the push up to Whiteface. We met some friends that were waiting along the road. When we crossed the road, they hiked up to the top. And some more friends were meeting at the top for us. So it was just one morale boost for her after another.
Cool.
Until the grand finale at the top. And she's not one to usually show a ton of emotion, but you could see when she was up there, the actual emotions pouring out of her in a way that she didn't really normally express to us when we get to the top of a mountain. You could see how proud she was of herself and how proud we all were of her.
That's awesome. And for those listening who aren't super familiar with the high peaks, Whiteface, you keep saying the road. There is an actual road that you can drive to the top of Whiteface Mountain. It's the only mountain in the Adirondacks that you can do that, but there is an actual road and a big, sightseeing building of sorts up on the summit. So it's pretty neat. So it's a good mountain to finish this sort of thing on, because you can celebrate with people who don't have to hike to the top. They could drive to the top and meet you there, and it's a pretty popular thing to do. And it's an amazing mountain up top on Whiteface. Question for you, real quick, as we're approaching the end of the road here. What would you say Sarah's pace was Like what's a good mile per hour pace that she typically was moving through this? And then towards the end, what do you think her pace dropped down to?
Oh, when she started out, she was probably doing 8 to 10 minute miles
Mm-hmm.
the first day,
Okay.
on the flats and straightaways, and probably closer to 15 to 20 minute mile in climbs. She was moving really well. Um, and we actually, on Esther, kind of made a point to make a little joke when we finally broke a 30-minute mile, because she'd been moving slower than 30-minute miles for quite some time due to her feet. So the last day, though, Whiteface Esther, she was doing pretty solid. The last miles were all 30 minutes or less, which
Okay. Yeah.
is pretty good for somebody who's done 160 miles.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
when I'm out there, I kind of am always shooting for 2 to 2.5 miles an hour. So that's my like normal hiking pace. What she's doing after doing 150 miles. Amazing. Cool. So lots of familiar faces, a lot of mental boosts, pick me ups as she got to the top, and then she got to the top, super emotional as anyone would be. An amazing accomplishment was done, and then you all walked down the toll road together, as I recall seeing pictures of.
that is correct. That we talked about different ways to get down, but ultimately, given the pace she was going and the way her legs felt, the road was not going to feel good, but it had the least amount of obstacles for her.
Yeah,
So,
no thinking
uh,
involved, really.
and we could all do it with her. So everybody just kind of grouped up and we all made the walk down. It took, I think, about 3 hours. So it wasn't rocket pace down the road, but it was over. And all she had to do was get to the toll booth at the end of the road where more people were waiting for her. Her car was there. So she was looking forward to sitting on the tailgate and just kind of taking it all in. And we all just chatted with her a little bit on the way down and told stories about the last couple of days.
Cool.
Uh, so it was quite the walk on that road. I'll never have a road walk like that again.
Yeah, I could imagine it was a pretty unique moment to experience for sure. So once she got back to the tailgate at the end of the hike and it was all over, I know she mentioned that she was pretty quiet, in her thoughts, and obviously probably kind of out of it and loopy at that point. But what did you feel at this point when it was done? So you're here, the support crew, watching it all, coordinating this and that, making sure everything's here, and you guys didn't get the outcome you wanted in terms of time, but the goal was accomplished as far as completing the task. How did that make you feel once she got to the tailgate at the end?
I couldn't be any more proud of her. I knew what she had to go through to do it. I knew it's something that I probably couldn't do myself. And I knew it was a goal that she's had. So that's what I continued to tell her the whole time, all the way to the very end, that I couldn't be any more proud of her or happy for what she was doing. And secondly, I was very thankful for all of the friends that she had and family that helped along the way to help make this possible. Because if it was just me and her, it wouldn't have been possible. So it was very much a team effort. She just happened to play the biggest role, and everybody else was in the background supporting. So without them, all the crew, the pacers, the friends that came out, even just the people on the trail that cheered her on, I was really thankful for everybody that helped make it happen.
Awesome. Now, I know Sarah mentioned, if you did it again, what was something that would been helpful. She mentioned having pretty much like two of you out there, two kind of people on the crew standpoint that are, managing everything. Is that what you would do differently again if you were to attempt this again?
Absolutely. Just having one more person to float around, to have to pick up some extra miles to drive somewhere, or so I could sleep while they drove somewhere and I could drive while they slept and we had to go somewhere. Just a little more rotation. I think the last day I slept 3 hours in the truck that night, and then I slept about 4 hours in the truck at Rocky Peak while she was climbing Rocky and Giant. So I totaled up probably 15 hours of sleep over the